Yeah, just like that.
Like that?
You look
All right.
relaxed. Caleb Alsworth,
John,
welcome to the Pirate.
thank you. Happy to be here. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Awesome.
Yeah,
So, you live out in Port Alsworth,
I do.
and you've heard of aviation before.
Yep.
Why don't you walk us through your qualifications to begin with?
Sure. So after seeing some of the guys you've had on here, I'm kind of a baby in the aviation world.
Oh, no.
I'm just under 1,000 hours, so I'm a single engine land and single engine float pilot. I have my complex, my high performance. I fly float planes from my dad's lodge in the summertime, and as well as Stinsons, which are the old 1940s tailwheels with the big bush tires and the bigger engines. And then I also fly like the 207 and the Bonanza for my grandpa throughout the whole year for Lake Clark Air.
Yeah.
Lake Clark Air.
So, you've been doing some float flying out there? I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. I saw you getting into Stinson the other day, and I was
Yeah.
really jealous, actually.
It was fun. Those are such cool planes. Like, everybody loves a Super Cub,
Yeah.
as they're kind of, they're like the other Alaska state bird, basically.
Yeah.
But my family just loves Stinsons. My grandpa,
Yeah.
Back in the day, we used to do a lot of, like, the farm lodge. Its biggest thing was like caribou hunting.
Mhm.
When the big Mulchatna caribou herd was there, and we would people would book hunts through Cabela's, which would then book us to us. So we're like Cabela's largest outfitter in the world at that time.
Oh, no.
So we had a bunch of different Stinsons, some Super Cubs, some PA-12s that were very modified and that we'd take everywhere. And we had like one Super Cub that had like everything on it, and my grandpa still just loved the Stinson,
Really?
You got, like, the Stinson 108 is a 4-place,
Yeah.
and you have just more sturdy in the wind. You can haul bigger stuff in there, and then it's just a sturdier airframe.
Mm-hmm.
So, a lot of times when Cubs crash, they kind of crumple because they're the hollow tubing, but the Stinson are just very sturdy,
really
safe airplanes, yeah.
And so now there are 2 Stinsons on the... So, one's on the certificate and one's not.
So there's the Blackhawk 6.9 kilo, the 108 is on the certificate, as well as the Stinson 10A, which is the 755.
Yep.
And then my grandpa recently bought another Stinson 108, I think is a -2, which he bought from Philip Nygaard, one of our old pilots.
Is that the yellow one?
That's the yellow one,
Nice.
yeah. So that one is Part 91, and it'll be used for the lodge in the summertime.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so for our listeners who aren't familiar, Lake Clark Air, who I fly for as well, is a Part 135 operator that does non-scheduled operations down the Alaskan Peninsula. The base is actually not here in Anchorage, but it's in Port Alsworth, is the name. And out there is the Farm Lodge, which is a separate entity and operates airplanes Part 91 for guests of the lodge. So they're taking people from the lodge out onto hunts or bear viewing tours or fishing.
Yeah, so typically, right now, the biggest thing is people want to see all the national parks.
Yeah.
That's kind of super popular now. So that's our main thing right now. We'll take people through different parts in Lake Clark National Park or down all the way down to Katmai National Park, and everywhere in between to go like fishing, bear viewing, wildlife viewing, all sorts of stuff.
Nice. Yeah. And so Babe Alsworth founded Lake Clark, right?
Yeah, so he founded Port Alsworth.
Oh, okay.
So him and my great-grandmother, she was a native gal from Pilot Point, you've been to, and then he flew like mail and stuff for the canneries down in Bristol Bay. He flew at T-Craft.
Yeah.
All the way from Anchorage, all the way down there. And so he would stay, a long ways. It's crazy to think about that back then,
That's a whole day of flying.
Oh, yeah.
Man, probably more than 8 hours.
Oh, yeah. And so they moved to Lake Clark on an agricultural homestead deal with the state. It wasn't a state yet. It was a territory. What they were doing was if you could, work a certain amount of land for a certain amount of years, have X amount of crops, stuff like that, they would give you the land. So I believe it was a 180-acre homestead.
Yeah.
When they were there. They first started actually on the northwest side of the lake.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
In a little spot, but it wasn't very protected when an east wind would blow. So my grandpa would have to park the T-Craft on floats. That's how you got around back then. like on a little lake 2 miles away and have to walk back to the cabin.
Oh,
So I got pretty tired of that pretty quick.
yeah.
So then they went to Harrenburg Bay, which is right at Port Alsworth, and that was a great spot because that bay is so protected from any direction of wind.
I was looking at it recently. And I was
Yeah, and then there's flat area to build a runway. And there was a few other people who lived on Lake Clark at that time. Like there was a cabin across the bay there, and then there were some people by the Tenalian River, which is called Tenalian Point. And that went back like early 1900s, those people were there. But he was really the first one, him and his wife were the first ones really to live there year round and right at Port Alsworth.
Yeah.
And so it actually wasn't them who named it Port Alsworth. It was, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was the doctor who had the cabin across the bay there, and he needed a mailing address.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so he named it Port Alsworth after my great-grandparents.
No way. And so did he founded Lake? He didn't found Lake Clark Air.
So that was Glen Sr, my grandpa, in 1977.
Okay.
When he came back, he was flying. I don't want to get this wrong, but I think he was flying for Penn Air after he finished getting all his ratings down in Michigan.
Okay.
Flew for Penn Air for a little bit. Was based out of Sandpoint, and then decided to move back and kind of take over the homestead because my great-grandparents were getting old, and he started in 1977, and it's a pretty interesting story, which if he ever gets on here, he'll have to tell for sure.
Dude, I really do want to have him on here.
Yeah, he'll love it. He'll be here for sure.
So then your dad, Glenn Jr., runs the lodge. Did he found that?
So my grandpa started Lake Clark Air in the farm lodge in 1977, and the lodge started out of his house.
Okay.
And it was mainly used for people, but back when he started Lake Clark Air, he had a T-Craft and a 180. Like the 180 was the fast plane. That was that was the go-to-town plane. And so lots of times, the avionics, 1977, not anything like we have now.
No.
So a lot of times people would get stuck.
Yeah.
And Port Alsworth was actually pretty busy back then. It's the last spot before Lake Clark Pass.
Yeah.
So you'd have a bunch of people coming in there, and so.
And if the pass gets filled
then
up,
you're stuck there.
Yeah.
So when my great-grandma and grandpa had the house there, a lot of people actually end up staying there. A lot of pilots who they didn't even know would just stay there before heading into town, So kind of started the lodge with that, and then had a float plane or two that he would take people out, just really small operation stuff, like around Southwest Alaska. And then when the hunting got a big operation, they did that. And then in early 2000s, my dad kind of took control of the farm lodge.
Okay.
And they moved up onto the property on the hillside.
Okay.
Then he's kind of grown it into what it is now. It started off with like the 180 wasn't on floats yet, so it was like two 206s on floats.
Yeah.
And then now we have 2 Beavers on floats. We have 2 206s on floats. The original 180 on floats.
Oh, that's the original.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And then we use the Stinsons for the lodge mainly in the summertime. Yeah. And then we have an old Stinson SRJR that my great-grandpa used to use in the area on floats. And my uncle's rebuilding that, and we're going to end up putting that on floats and using it for the lodge as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's a sick fleet.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet.
Isn't it the case that Lake Clark has the single most diverse fleet of any 135 operator?
I believe that's true. A couple of things that have changed is like we used to keep all the float planes on the 135.
Oh, yeah.
And so, but one of the things was like we would get stuck doing little shuttles for people, like a 10-minute flight.
Yeah. Some
guys would own little cabins and remote lakes, and that would be like a 10-minute flight, but you have like 30 minutes of prep on each end because they bring like a whole lot of stuff. And so that plane's stuck for the whole day. Can't use it for a tour. Then also like with Part 91 with the lodge, you just do your training to what is logical and, and what you need really. Mm-hmm. But with the 135, they were requiring so much more training and different things. But we still keep our planes up to like maintenance-wise all the 135 requirements. Mm-hmm. But we just took them off the ticket to make it just simpler for both ends.
Yeah, it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Now the way that it's set up.
Yeah.
And having the 2 Stinsons still on the ticket is great for spring breakup and
for sure. Like we use those in the springtime. As you know, I mean the runways are horrible. They're not horrible. They're great. For what they are. I mean, there's little strips of land with the material around there. But in the springtime, in Alaska, everyone called it breakup.
Yeah.
So everything's just gross. You'll get mud everywhere and rust and ice and just nasty. So those big tires really help. And then also we use those are still on the ticket, so we do a lot of flying for different hunters and stuff.
Yeah.
And those work great for that.
Nice. So when did you start flying?
So I'll go even further back. I didn't love the idea of being a pilot when I was young. I used to get sick every time I flew, like
No,
to the point I'd vomit every flight.
no way.
Every time, yeah. So I remember, like, as far back as I can remember as a kid, I kind of hated flying.
Yeah.
Because I just knew, like, I'd always have a six sack in my pocket because I knew I was gonna throw up, like, no matter what. And so, yeah, so that's kind of a thing. But my dad was like, "You don't worry, I used to get sick too. Like, as you do more flying and stuff, like when you're actually in control, you'll get over it." And I was like, "I don't know, this is pretty bad. Like, I throw up every time." But my grandpa started teaching my brother and me when we were really young.
Yeah.
Like, he'd be right seat. So he was pilot in command. We weren't in command. Just a disclaimer. And so he would teach us when I was 11. He would come over, like we would go. It was a Taylorcraft, an 85 horsepower, two-seater, no electrical system in there. So, when you're 11, you're throwing the prop. It's kind of scary if you have too much throttling, But yeah, that was a good experience. And T-crafts are great to learn in because the Stinson's so nice because it's so stable and like you can't really bounce it very hard and it's just very responsive. Whereas the T-craft, you can float that thing forever down the runway. Right. Or if you bounce, you're in the sky. It's just like a giant kite,
Yeah.
But it takes a lot of movement too. So it's very good to learn in because it's very, it's just very finicky.
Mm-hmm.
So typically, like what my grandpa loves about those, like if you can fly a T-craft, it translates really well into other planes later just because you get a really good feel for the airplane instead of just like a nose wheel 172 where it tracks straight whenever you're on the ground.
Yeah.
Like one of the lessons I learned early from my grandpa was like, in the T-craft or any plane, you're not safe. You're not done flying until you're tied down.
Right.
Like for example, like going down the runway, tail wheel, you're doing a lot of rudder action. Like one time we were going down and like the brake like popped on the right side, and so it wasn't working anymore. So like we started going off the side. Well, it didn't go off the side, but we were angling towards the side and got it fixed. But that's just a good reminder, like that you're not done flying the plane until you're in the tie down. We're going slow and stuff, but it's a good reminder.
Yeah.
But anyways, so I started learning when I was 11. My grandpa would take us out, start off just taxiing up and down the runway and then getting more power to get the tail wheel up and go down up and down the runway. And we would just, we'd bring it down in the summertime, like 6 a.m. Mm-hmm. He'd go fly with us for like half an hour, and then he'd go, fly his Lake Clark Air stuff. But yeah, kind of started around then. And so 11 was kind of when I first started. I legally soloed for the first time on my 16th birthday.
Nice.
It was pretty fun. Like for volleyball, we were traveling to a place to the road system for a tournament, but my grandpa delayed the departure so I could do my solo before we took off. So that was pretty fun.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. And then, so I did that. When I was 17, COVID happened, which was great for me because school was shut down, and I had already done all my ground school, but I was didn't really do any flying in the wintertime because I was kind of busy. Mm-hmm. But now no school, no sports, nothing. And actually Chris Hardis, who you had on the podcast, was my instructor when I actually got my private. I was his first student to get a rating.
No way.
So
nice.
Well, yeah, to get my license. So we had a lot of hours together. We're in the Tri-Pacer.
Yeah.
1-4 Delta. We would fly. We did a lot of legs to Anchorage and back, and just all sorts of good stuff. It was a lot of fun. So when I was 17, I got my license June 12th, 2020, and then I went to school in Virginia, Liberty University.
Yeah.
So I kind of took a break, didn't really get any more ratings. When I came back, got my instrument the next summer, and that was tough. So for my private, I went to Talkeetna and did my check ride with Don Lee, the legend.
Oh, yeah.
So that's, there's been some stuff come up with that, but I was actually, it was really cool to do a check ride with him because he has so much knowledge for flying, and just visiting with him afterward was so much fun. Just all the real life, knowledge of flying in Alaska and just picking his brain was really cool.
That's kind of been awesome.
Yeah. So, after my private, I got that in June. I actually got my private float in July, just because I was not even 18 yet, so I couldn't get my commercial yet. So I was like, might as well get my float rating so I can build some time.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the dumb things I feel like. I feel like the float thing should work as an endorsement just for the fact, like, if you're a private pilot and you get your float rating, after you get your commercial, you have to do commercial float.
Yeah.
So you have to pay for 2 check rides.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
And isn't there one different maneuver, or it's
Maybe
all the same check ride?
Yeah, you could just add the one. They're not very different check rides. You just do everyone to the standards of the commercial check ride and then just let it pass over. But I mean, it is what it is. I'm glad I did it though, because I got to fly floats. So I fly empty legs with my dad and stuff. But
that's awesome.
And so I did my instrument with Carol Zerby, who she's an awesome lady. Really kind of a female legend in aviation in Alaska here.
Yeah.
So we did my check ride, but there are no precision approaches near Port Alsworth. The closest ones are either in Kenai or King Salmon.
Yep.
So my check ride, the flight portion was 5 hours long.
Jeez.
Because we had to start it off with the cross country all the way to Kenai. And we had to do
in a 172 or
in a 172.
Oh, gosh.
That took forever. We did our 3 different approaches there. That took forever. Then we had to fly all the way back. And so me and Carol we just had lots of visits over the years. So I also did my float check ride with her for mine. So that took forever. That was her.
Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay.
That was her longest check ride ever too, so that's kind of fun,
really?
I guess. But so yeah, I did my instrument with her, and then 2023 I did my commercial check ride with her as well, and then my float check ride with I feel bad for forgetting his name. Cool guy. I'll remember it later. But he's really cool. He has a beaver. He does a lot of people their initial float rides in.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does a lot of the DPE's work for Alaska Float and Skis now.
Okay.
But I feel bad for forgetting his name.
Sorry.
But he knows who he is. He's awesome. We text every once in a while.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, that was kind of me getting my ratings, and then 2023, kind of the end of the summer, I got to do a few float flights for my dad. Part 91. I had right around 500 hours, but since it's 91, you don't need 100, and it worked out great because one of our pilots, Ryan, he had to leave like the whole month of September. So I wouldn't have got any flights just because a lot of the bookings for the lodge happens like a year in advance.
Yeah.
So my dad didn't book anything for me. But since he left, I got all his flights.
Nice.
So it was great. I had a bunch of fun flights. My very first one, though, I was with Guess, and one of the bad things, I don't look very old. I'm 22 now, but I was 21 back then. No, 20. Like, so many people, like, so many guests when I was flying, and they're like, "You're my pilot?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm your pilot." And they're like, "You look younger than my grandson." I was like, "Yeah, I probably am." So I've got a little bit of that, but it's okay.
Yeah, people like a very thin band of age for pilots, but it's like that's not exactly how the talent is distributed.
Yeah, but it's fun. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah,
and then this year in this spring, I got, I guess, spring of 24. I went past all my training and did my check rides and stuff, and I started flying for Lake Clark Air 207. Got in the Bonanza in the fall, and just what I've learned from like the start of 2024 to the end of 24, just actually being like, single pilot in the airplane, seeing all this different weather, seeing different loads in the airplane. Like, I feel like I've grown so much in that 1 year, more than I have like in all of my flight training, just from like the real life, just, sinking your teeth into it, and just the experience you learn along the way is very important.
There's only so much you can get from a book, or even talking to some of these legends that are up here.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through some of the stuff that you've experienced that really stuck with you?
One thing, it's like Alaska is so different flying here than any other state. Just what I always tell you is like it's beautiful, but like for how beautiful it is, like it's always trying to kill you.
Yeah.
Just between like weather and terrain and even just like pressure from people when they get home.
Yeah.
They're like, "What do you mean we can't go?" That's the worst. Like when you're it's the one place and it's beautiful where you're at, and you're like, "What do you mean I can't get home? It's beautiful here." You're like, "Well, yeah, but it's zero visibility and snow showers and windy one time, one of my good lessons I learned first, like mountain flying, was I was flying through Lake Clark Pass, and The 207, I had like 4 people in there going to Anchorage. I was under gross. I was heavy, but I wasn't, nothing crazy. Took off, and I was flying, and if you take the main pass and you go past Otter Lake, it was a windy day. I had like 40 on the nose, so slow.
Oh, yeah.
But it was the east wind, and I thought, if I stick to the kind of the northwest, like hug that mountainside, theoretically, what they teach you is like the wind should be coming from the east and blowing you up.
Pushing you up, yeah.
Well, I was going, and luckily I was at like 3,000 feet. It was good visibility and stuff. But I was going, and I hit this downdraft, and it was like 1,000 feet per minute descent, and I put full power in, and I was like getting to VY, and it was still just like 1,000, like nothing I could do to stop it. That was the scariest moment I had flying. So I was like, oh my gosh, what the heck? I'm just going down. But luckily, it ended. And what I learned, because later I told my dad about it, I told him that was super scary. Like, what did I do wrong? And, he told me, like, if on those kind of days, like Lake Clark Pass, especially if you, instead of sticking to one side or the other, if you just fly more at the middle of the pass, and, plenty of altitude, and then, if that really gets bad, full power, then you can also drop a little flap, and that helps a lot of times. But that definitely was like a welcome to pass flying, I guess, welcome to mountain flying for me. So that was pretty fun.
So one of the things that I do when if I've got if I have a downdraft over off of 2.5 out of Merrill, and I'm at 600 feet, I'm going to mush it into the Sheraton nose up, and try to survive it. But if I've got a little bit of altitude, the mountain flying handbook actually turned me onto this. Is you want to spend as little time in the downdraft as possible, and the best way is to accelerate. So if you're in a downdraft, you can drop your nose and lose less altitude by just shooting out, rather than if you, of course, you want to counteract that descent. You see the terrain coming up all around you, slowing down, and but then you spend more time in that downdraft.
Yeah.
So that 1,000 feet per minute gets stretched out to, 60 seconds rather than 45 or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's if, and there are so many different variables in each scenarios that it's it's not one size fits all as far as how to fly through that stuff.
Yeah.
So, for those that don't know, the Lake Clark Pass is a very conveniently positioned pass that covers 60%, 50% of the route between Anchorage and Port Alsworth, and it's almost a straight line from Anchorage to Port Alsworth. So it's absolutely fantastic. Some people come up just to experience that.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's. I fly it sometimes 6 times a day in the summer, and it gets me every time. I love it.
It's gorgeous. I love it, and it's so cool too. Like the different times of year you go. Yeah. The springtime and the summer, it's so green and so lush. So many waterfalls. Yeah, it's gorgeous. And like fall time, the changing of the colors. You get the bears eating the salmon. You see the moose. It's great. My wife and I will go. Like on this August, I think it was, or September. It's like this beautiful night. It was like 8 o'clock or 7:30. We just like hopped in the T-craft, took off, and we were going buzzing around. We counted like 10 or 11 bears between like Otter Lake and the Narrows. Otter Lake and the Forks.
Oh, wow.
And then we just came back around. We landed a couple spots, walked around with like the pink on the mountains from the setting sun. It was just gorgeous.
Dude, those hues in the mountains, like that really gets me. You get the salted peaks and then the delicate colors of sunset. I love it. So, you've started flying the Bonanza, and you're pretty close to your IFR minimums. So you'll be moving up to the... Yeah,
so actually I still need to get my multi.
Oh,
I haven't done that yet. I was thinking of doing that this winter, but quite honestly, I still needed quite a few night hours.
Yeah.
And then total time as well. So I was figuring my brother and I, like he's about to have a kid in a couple months. So we kind of want to do it together. What we'll most likely do is try to get all our requirements done this this winter, like get most of our night flying knocked out and stuff, and then next winter we go into the slow season again. Just go crank it out, in a few weeks.
That's what I did. I did mine in the winter when it was a little slower. I went up to Palmer, and that was, dude, for how close it is to Anchorage, it's so gorgeous to fly out of Palmer. First of all, it's a way different experience because it's not, slamming airspace.
Yeah.
And then you're just like nestled into that little horseshoe of mountains, and it was absolutely gorgeous. Were you planning on getting yours?
Probably, I think Ned and Ryan did it over at Blue River.
That's
Up there. Is that where you did it?
That's where I got mine.
Yeah, I've heard good things.
I don't know if she's still up there, but yeah, it was a great experience. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah,
and yeah, it's a lot of fun to move up to something big and fast.
Yeah,
hitting switches and dials all the time.
Yeah.
So, what is some advice that you've been surrounded by aviation greats your entire life? What's some advice that you've gotten that has really stuck with you?
One thing, it's so great just to pick the brains of people who have so much experience. Like my grandpa's been flying in Alaska, out of Fort Alsworth since he was 12.
Yeah.
Like he's literally a living aviation legend, like in the Alaska Aviation Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
It's like he has so much experience. My dad has so much experience. One of my uncles is a pilot. Like a couple of my uncles are pilots, and they've been, just flying in the area. So just, you think you know what you're doing. I think transitioning from, going airport to airport, that kind of stuff. When you get in a tailwheel, and you have the ability to go land places, you think you know what you're doing, but just learning how to read the wind out in the tundra, or spotting what kind of tundra, what kind of land is more firm.
Yeah.
What your plane can handle, and just one thing my dad always had us do was, instead of just going out on our own, we would always follow somebody, find someone who knows what they're doing and is really good at it.
Oh yeah.
And they have their own plane, and or have them go with you in your plane, or follow them in their plane, and talk to them on the radio. They'll tell you what they see, what they're doing, why they're doing it.
Oh, nice.
And so just having a mentor like that is super important. I feel like when you're transitioning to that kind of stuff, because it's dangerous.
Yeah.
There's so many. I remember growing up all throughout my life, just hearing of, oh, looks like there's another crashed airplane out here. Oh, there's one right there.
Oh yeah.
Oh, this guy was obviously too heavy trying to come out of this spot. Look right there. It's
yeah.
So that's one thing, and then another one, as soon as I started getting into float plane flying, and also off airport stuff, is if you think you need to shuttle, you probably need to shuttle. It's if you're asking yourself that question, it's better just shuttle to a bigger spot, and then if you have the fuel for it,
right,
bring fuel expecting to, because you'll be much happier to shuttle and be okay than thinking you might have it than wrecking an airplane.
Yeah.
And one other, before I go on, it's a lot of us, I think this is important, a lot of us, growing up out in the villages, we learn to fly, from a really young age.
Yeah.
One thing my dad would always tell us is if you're going to end up flying 135, for Lake Clark Air one day, or anywhere you fly for, you're going to be flying the same people who watch you grow up.
Yeah.
And you interact with all the time. So if they see you being stupid on another vehicle, being reckless or doing dangerous stuff, if they hop in and you're their pilot, that's not really good look. Or if you're doing stuff in your plane, around where everyone can see, that's kind of questionable or can make people uncomfortable. So they see you doing that in your own plane, and then you go fly with them. It's not a good look. They can be really uneasy. So he always just told me and my brother and a lot of people just what people see you do, even when you're not working, is gonna form how they think of you, and you want to make sure they feel safe.
So maintaining that high level of professionalism.
Yeah, in your personal life.
That's awesome. That's good advice. That you were talking about the apprenticeship aspect of flying, and apprenticeships are. I used to rock climb, and that's how rock climbing used to be taught. It was an apprentice and somebody who knew how not to die. and you would just like go out and climb with them for months or years before you thought about climbing on your own. I mean, it's just as dangerous as flying. It's super complex, and so like nowadays it's really morphed into oh, I took this class and now I can climb. Oh, I watched these videos and now I can climb. And I feel like that's a very similar attitude to a lot of pilots have with, oh, you know, I finished the school, I passed the check ride. Well, I got my float rating down at Jack Brown's, and the DP said, look, here are the airman certification standards, look them over. This is the dumbest pilot the FAA wants in the air. That's the minimum. So like just the fact that you passed your check ride doesn't mean you don't have lots to still learn.
Mm-hmm.
And so like being open to that and actively seeking that out by like following people or having people go up with you, that's an excellent way of going about it.
It definitely takes some humility, you know. It's like you think you're hot stuff. You have an airplane. You're on top of the world when you're flying, but
yeah,
you just recognize that you don't know everything. And one of the cool things about the aviation community that I've noticed is like people are so willing just to share you information, especially here in Alaska. It's like if you ask someone a question about just like local knowledge and stuff, they'll probably give you like a 10, 15-minute answer about it. Quick, just because they're so passionate about it and they want to make sure, you know, you're safe and you know, just go find an old pilot who's been doing it for a long time. Yeah. And they're going to be more than happy to give you some pointers.
Absolutely. So you flew down in Michigan?
No. So I went down to school in Virginia.
Okay.
My grandpa did stuff in Michigan. So I didn't go to school for aviation.
Okay.
I went to school for business administration.
Oh, yeah?
With a cognate of digital marketing and advertising. So
nice. Using that?
Yeah, actually I am. I'm designed a website for my dad and grandpa's nonprofit.
Oh, yeah?
And then the Alsworth Foundation.
Nice.
And then I designed a website. I'm working on a new website for the farm lodge in Lake Clark Resort because the old one was built quite a few years ago and just needs some updating.
I'm actually not familiar with the Alsworth Foundation.
Yeah, so it's actually super cool. So the main thing we're doing now is it got officially started in 2016. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of still getting going. I think the website's going to help a lot because the reason it's formed is for prevention, education, and awareness for fetal alcohol syndrome disorder. So a lot of kids, it's no secret, a lot of kids in Alaska suffer from FASD. Yeah. And so a lot of it, you know, it has to do with just educating the kids, knowing, you know, don't drink when you're pregnant. Yeah. And one of the things, like I know lots of friends who suffer. I have some family members who suffer. And it's a bummer because, you know, it is like obviously people who have FASD, they're still beautiful, special people. Like they're awesome. Mm-hmm. I love them. But it's I'm trying to get the right wording because I don't want to say this wrong. But it's a decision that their parent makes, you know, that impacts the kid. Mm-hmm. That has no control over, and it often is harmful. You know, it absolutely definitely leads to like cognitive, like it's hard for kids like to learn, or they just have, you know, it's just a little hindrance that they have to learn how to overcome that they never asked for, and they have no part of having it. Yeah. You know, so one of the big things my dad does, and my grandpa, my dad is a coach for Tenalian Lynx volleyball, the high school team. Mm-hmm. He's been doing it for over 20 years, and so they host a tournament every year. And the Alsworth Foundation, what they do, they provide like scholarships for teams to be able to, it covers their airfare from like Anchorage to Port Alsworth. Oh, yeah. So my grandpa, they do that through Lake Clark Air and through the Alsworth Foundation to get them out there. And then what we're doing is we're really trying to get this year's like a guest speaker out there. So there's some different people we've interacted with in the past who are excited about this. I don't want to do any name drops, but one. The cool thing, like through volleyball, we got to meet a lot of cool people. Like Nick Hansen's one of the guys who's the Eskimo Ninja Warrior. Oh yeah, he's a good friend of my dad, and so he's really excited about this whole thing. So he wants to kind of get involved with it in the future and stuff. So
That's awesome.
like doing that, and then just having the like pamphlets and like little short seminars for the kids. Like, hey, like if you do become pregnant, like don't drink while you are pregnant. And hey, if you are a husband or a boyfriend and you get your wife pregnant, hey, you know what? It might be hard for her not to drink while she's pregnant. So here, how about you also make the decision like not to drink while she's pregnant to like remove that temptation, like work together as a team, like to give your kid the best future, and the best way going forward. And so that's one thing, the awareness side. And then just, we don't want kids who have it to feel less special or to be like angry, so we try to provide just like guidance for that too. And
Yeah.
I'm really excited about it. I just love the people of Alaska,
Yeah.
and I think my whole family just has a big heart to, to help people where we can, and just love on them and give them tools they need.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what's the future hold for you?
Well, I got married in March of last year.
She's in our live studio
wife,
audience.
She's awesome. So that was new. We we love Alaska. She's actually from California. So I'm very, very lucky that I found a wife who would, likes living out in the bush, out in the no stores in Port Alsworth, no restaurants, very secluded.
Yeah.
There's like 150, 180 of people who live there year round.
Yeah.
It's pretty quiet in the wintertime, but I mean, we have some pretty awesome opportunities there in Port Alsworth, just business-wise, like our job. She works at the family's resort in the farm lodge in the summertime, managing the girls, but then, I fly.
Mm-hmm.
So we feel like we love our jobs, and also we have really fun opportunities just to get to know people and witness to them, like, love on people who are brought to us, that we come in contact with, whether it's summer staff, we get to just encourage them, build them up while they're there. And lots of people like Caitlin, one of our other people in the audience, like she's now a good friend of the family, and her and Chandra are good friends, and just, so it's really cool the opportunities we have and the people we meet through that, and then like the guests and other coworkers like Lake Clark Air and stuff. So for now, we feel like Port Alsworth is the place. I want to get my multi and fly, but we feel like we're here for now, and we have a reason to be in Port Alsworth, but we're also, if we feel like God wants us somewhere else, we're going to go somewhere else. But,
nice. Yeah. Caleb Alsworth, thanks for coming on the Fire Up.
Thank you. It was fun.